Hi, third graders. It's time to take a look at our day 4, week 17 DMA. So one of these problems on here, you're going to also have something to do with your DMA. Quick check quiz, and I will let you know which one you're going to be working with or what is our clue for today. So let's look at our first problem. It says show 2 ways to solve this problem. I'm going to show you one way to start with. So you will notice here you have 2 multiplication symbols here. This is something new that we haven't worked with before. We've actually done the distributive property where we've had 2 factors and we can take one of those apart as a different number of groups. Here we've got 2 multiplication facts. So I'm going to get started with showing you 4 times 3. So if we look at 4 times 3, this tells us we have 4 rows and we have 3 objects in each row. So if I were to use, let's try using our understanding with an area, finding the area or the number of square units it takes to cover an area. So if I were to, let's just start with 4 rows. So if I had 4 rows, actually maybe I will use a highlighter. Let's use a highlighter instead. So I'm going to do 4 rows, and I'm going to use an array instead of my square units. 4 rows, and there are going to be 3 in each row. So there's another group of 3, there's another row of 3, there's another row of 3. So this is 4 times 3 right here, 4 times 3. But now, this tells us that we're not going to just do 4 times 3 one time, we're going to do it twice, 2 times. So we have 4 times 3, but now we're going to do this twice. So I'm going to show 4 rows of 3 again. Again, this is not the distributive property, but it's kind of similar to it because if I know what 4 times 3 is, 4 times 3 is actually going to be 12, right? And then that means that I have 12 here, and I have another 12 here. And 12 2 times is going to give me 24. So that's one way to look at it, is I'm going to take this 4 times 3 once, and then I'm going to do it again twice. So when I go to show this in my multiplication, 4 times 3 is 12. Then I'm going to multiply that by 2, and 12 times 12, or 12 plus 12, we just said is going to be 24. Okay, that's one way to think about it. Now, what if I decided instead of taking 4 times 3 and doing it twice, I could do 3 times 2, or 3 rows of 2, 4 times. I could also do it that way as well. But I'm just going to have you do it this one way just to start us off with this idea. So I have 4 times 3 once and 4 times 3 again twice. And that's going to give us 12, and this is going to give us 12, and that's going to give us our 24. So this is called the associative property, where you have 3 factors instead of just 2 factors. It's called the associative property. Okay, now we're going to move on to our equations here. They're division equations because you can see that we have a division symbol here, which tells us that we are taking our total objects and we're sharing them into smaller groups. So we have a large group and we're putting it into smaller groups. Now, if you notice here, we do not know our dividend. Dividend is the word that you're going to know is the total objects. Okay, our total objects are the dividend. Now, what if I don't know how many total objects I have? Well, I can figure that out because my divisor can tell me my groups and my quotient can tell me the number of objects in each group. So if I had 8 groups and I put 2 objects in each group, I could say 2, that's once. Another group is another 2. So now I'm at 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups of 2, 5 groups of 2, 6 groups of 2, 7 groups of 2, 8 groups of 2. So my 8 groups with my 2 objects in each group is going to give me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. 16 objects are what we're starting with. Now, I could also think about this the other way. If I knew how many objects I had, let's say I have 8 objects in each group, and I know how many groups I have. Maybe I have 2 groups with 8 in each group. 8 plus 8 is still going to give me that 16. So remember, to check your division, you can use multiplication. So 2 times 8 is 16, which is what I did here. I multiplied 8 times 2, or I can multiply 2 times 8. 8 times 2 or 2 times 8 is going to give me this total right here. Now you'll notice in the next equation, I know my total, which is the 27. I can see that I might know my groups, but I don't know how many are in each group. So I could take 3 groups and I could start putting objects into each group. Now, if you know your multiplication facts, you might know what this missing factor is to help you find your divisor. So this is a missing factor. This is your divisor. We need to know how many objects are in each group. So if I start putting objects into groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and finally 27. So these are so that's 8, and one more is 9, 8, and one more is 9. We're 9 in each group. So, actually I probably should have made those groups a little bit larger. You could also figure it out by putting groups of 3s and counting by 3s to get to 27 and see how many groups of 3 you were able to make. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 3 more would be 15, another 3 is 18, 21 is another 3, 24, and finally 27. Well, I counted 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So again, you could put it into 3 equal groups, or you could count by 3s and find out how many groups of 3. But again, you should be able to use your multiplication understanding to help you find a missing part in your division. Here we have 32 objects. We can either say I'm going to put 4 in each group, or I could say 4 groups. Whichever one you decide, it's going to be the opposite. So in this case, if I say I've got 4 groups and I'm going to put these objects shared equally into these 4 groups, I'm going to end up finding how many is in each group. So again, if I know my multiplication facts, I could use multiplication to help me with my division. But if I don't, I can use what I know about division and share those objects equally into the groups. Now, since this is an even number, 32, this means that I can start putting groups of 2 into these 4 equal groups and share them by 2s, and that will make this a little more efficient or quick. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, and finally 32. So I was a little quicker in being able to put these objects into equal groups, counting by 2s instead of just going 1 at a time, since this is an even number. So if you notice, there's 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom, which makes 8. 4 and 4 is 8, 8, and finally 8. So there are 8 objects in each group, and 4 groups of 8. Oh, I put 36. Oopsie doopsie. So 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is your 4 groups of 8, and when you add these all back up, you're going to get that 32 that you started with here when you started sharing them equally. So check your check your division using multiplication. So let's take a look at our next problem. What time is shown on the clock? Remember that the hour hand is your shorthand. So the shorthand is your hour hand. So we're just going to highlight the hour hand, purple. And the minute hand, we're going to highlight as orange. Okay, so our hour, if you look at the hour, it's not pointing at the 6, it's not pointing at the 7, which tells us that if our minute hand continues to keep moving around, this hour hand is going to move closer and closer to the next hour, which will be, if you said 7, that's correct. But that tells us that we're not at 7 o'clock yet. That tells us that we are at 6 o'clock. Okay? Now we look at the minute hand. So the minute hand is the long hand. And remember, the numbers on the clock only tell us the hours. We have to know that for every number on the clock, it's 5 minutes. So from here to here is 5. From here to here is another 5, which is 10. From the 2 to the 3 is another 5 minutes, which is now at the 15-minute mark. From the 3 to the 4 is another 5 minutes. But now you will notice that we aren't at the 5 and it's not pointing directly on the 4. So we have to count the tick marks that are coming after the 20. So that would be 21, 22. It might be 23. So I would accept either time as either 6:22 or our time could be 6:23. So 622 or 623 would be acceptable answers for our clock problem. So in your DMA quiz today, this is going to be one of your questions. I am going to ask you to write the time that was shown on the clock for your DMA day 4. So when you get to that problem, you won't see a clock. You will have to know that you are looking at today's DMA today's DMA solution video. Now let's take a look at our division equations again. We want to know how many groups of 6 it takes to make 36. So that means I'm going to take this large group of 36 objects and share it equally into groups of 6. And I want to know how many groups I have. Remember, these can be interchangeable as long as I know either the number in each group or the number of groups. So we're going to use 6s and count by 6. That's one group of 6. We've got 12. Another group of 6 would be 18. Another group would be 24. Add 6 more, now I'm at 30. And finally add 6 more, now I'm at 36. I added 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So my groups, I have 6 groups of 6, and this tells me I have 6 groups. When I took these 6s out of the 36, I ended up with 6 groups of 6. Now, same thing for 16 divided by 2. If I have a total of 16 objects and I take 2 out, then I'm left with 14, right? If I take 2 more out, then I'm left with 12. If I take out another 2, that gives me 10. If I take out another 2, that leaves me with 8. If I take out another 2, now I'm at 6. Take 2 more out, now I'm at 4. Take 2 more, now I'm at 2. And take out 2 more, now I've used all 16 up, and I can count how many groups of 2 I was able to take out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There are 8 groups of 2. So when you're taking your objects and putting them into smaller groups, you can find out how many groups of that amount you have. So I had 2, and 2 more, 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 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, until I get to 16. 40 divided by 5. If I have 40 and I put groups of 5 together, I'm taking out 5 every time. So if I take out 5, now I'm at 35. Take out 5 more, now I'm at 30. 5 more would be at 25. 5 more, 20. Take away another 5 and pull those out. Now I'm at 15. Take out 5 more, that's 10. Take out 5 more, now I'm at 5. And finally, I take out those last 5, and I should be at 0 when I subtract 5s out of this 40. Now, how many 5s was I able to take out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So basically what I did here is I took 5 out every time, and I counted back from 40 till I got to 0 to find out how many groups, and my lights just went out. So 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, and finally 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and finally 8. I was able to take out 8 groups from those 40. So just another way to look at this, and counting back by 5s, and you can't quite see the very end. Let me move it, okay? And so finally, once you got to 0, you can count how many groups of 5 you were able to count back by or subtract. So don't forget, this is going to be part of your DMA quiz. So be sure that when you get to this problem, remember that you are not going to see a clock on the problem. You're just going to know that you need to put the time in there from your DMA video. If you have any questions, we will also be meeting in small groups today. So if you have any questions, write them down and we'll talk about them during small groups.